pay attention to Harrison Olvey, 25 years old, running across a Buckhead parking lot at 2 o'clock in the morning on September 3rd, 2023. He spotted someone breaking into a customer's truck. And as a valet manager, it's his job to stop it. He has less than 60 seconds left to live. Because the man inside that truck is Randy King, 22 years old, armed with a gun he's not supposed to have, and willing to do anything to avoid getting caught. On this night, Harrison thought he was just doing his job, protecting a vehicle he was responsible for. On this night, Randy made a split-second decision to eliminate the only witness. This is the story of how asking, "What are you doing?" became a death sentence, and how a camera inside that truck recorded the killer's face, sealing his fate forever. Harrison Olvey was 25 years old, a December 2022 graduate of Kennesaw State University, where he'd earned a degree in finance. By September 2023, he was in transition, working as a valet manager at Tongue and Groove nightclub in Buckhead while preparing to start his professional career. He just accepted a position in financial planning with State Farm. His future was mapped out. His hard work was about to pay off. He was days away from leaving the valet job behind and starting the career he'd spent 4 years preparing for. Harrison's mother, Autumn Ernst, described him as someone with exceptional vitality, the kind of person who was always the last to leave the dance floor. At Kennesaw State, he'd been deeply involved in the Pi Kappa Phi fraternity, where his brothers described him as popular, influential, and someone who perfectly balanced full-time academics with constant employment. Harrison was the guy who worked his way through college, who showed up for every shift, who took pride in doing his job well, even when that job was parking cars outside a nightclub at 2 o'clock in the morning. On the night of September 3rd, 2023, Labor Day weekend, Harrison was working the overnight shift in a parking facility near Tongue and Groove. It was a facility shared by several establishments, including a Longhorn Steakhouse. The area, located in the 2400 block of Piedmont Road Northeast near the Lindbergh Transit Hub, was busy even at that hour. Harrison was doing what he always did, keeping an eye on the lot, making sure customers' vehicles were safe, providing good service. And then he noticed someone breaking into a truck that belonged to an acquaintance or regular client, someone whose vehicle Harrison felt responsible for protecting. So Harrison ran across that parking lot to confront the man breaking into the truck. He approached and asked a simple question. "What are you doing?" That question cost him his life. Randy King was 22 years old in September 2023. Unlike Harrison, Randy wasn't preparing for a bright professional future. He was already known to the justice system. Most importantly, Randy was a first offender probationer at the time of the shooting. This legal status strictly prohibited him from possessing a firearm. Being caught with a gun would be an automatic violation of his probation. Yet on the night of September 3rd, Randy King was carrying a loaded firearm, and he was using the cover of darkness to commit what Atlanta police call entering auto crimes, what criminologists refer to as the slider phenomenon. Break into cars quickly, grab what you can, move to the next target. It's a pervasive problem in metropolitan Atlanta, especially in areas like Buckhead, where nightlife brings expensive cars and distracted owners. At approximately 2 a.m., Randy was in the act of breaking into a truck parked in the lot where Harrison worked. He was inside the vehicle, rummaging through the interior, looking for valuables. What Randy didn't know was that this particular truck had something most vehicles don't: an internal security camera, a truck cam that was recording everything in high definition from just feet away. The camera captured Randy's face clearly as he searched through the vehicle, not from across a parking lot, not from a grainy street camera, from right there inside the truck as Randy rifled through the console and compartments. And then Harrison Olvey came running across the parking lot. According to all available evidence, Harrison's intervention wasn't aggressive. He wasn't trying to physically attack Randy or fight him. He was a valet manager doing his job, approaching to ask why someone was breaking into a customer's vehicle. But Randy King had a gun. And Randy King was on probation, which meant getting caught with that gun meant going back to prison. In the seconds that followed Harrison's arrival, Randy made a calculation. He could surrender, face the consequences, go back to jail for violating probation. Or he could eliminate the witness. Randy pulled out his gun and fired a single shot at close range, striking Harrison in the chest. Then Randy ran to a getaway vehicle, later identified as belonging to his girlfriend, and fled the scene, leaving Harrison bleeding out on the pavement of the parking lot where he'd been working to earn money before starting his real career. Harrison Olvey never got to start that job at State Farm. He never got to use his finance degree. He never got to build the life he'd worked so hard for. All because he ran across a parking lot to do his job. Atlanta Police Department officers arrived within minutes of the shooting. Their body-worn cameras captured the chaotic scene. A parking lot, emergency responders performing life-saving measures, and Harrison Olvey unresponsive on the ground. Despite their best efforts and rapid transport to Grady Memorial Hospital, Harrison was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. The medical examiner determined the cause of death was a single gunshot wound to the chest. The manner, homicide. But something Harrison said in those final moments would complicate the investigation. According to witnesses, Harrison initially reported seeing 2 black dudes. This dying declaration suggested there might have been a second person involved in the attack. This detail would become a central part of Randy King's defense strategy later. But first, investigators had to find him. Randy King didn't turn himself in. He went on the run. For approximately 1 month, King remained at large. The Atlanta Police Department placed him on their most wanted list. His face was distributed to media outlets across the city. Tips came in, but King managed to evade capture. Finally, it was Randy's own family members who facilitated his surrender. Whether this was motivated by conscience or the realization that the evidence against him was overwhelming, we don't know. But approximately 1 month after murdering Harrison Olvey, Randy King was taken into custody. As investigators built their case, the strength of the evidence against Randy became overwhelming. First, there was the truck cam footage. The high-definition video from inside the vehicle captured Randy's face clearly as he committed the burglary. Unlike external CCTV cameras that might show a hooded figure from a distance, this footage provided an intimate, undeniable view of Randy's features. The defense couldn't argue it was too grainy to identify. They couldn't claim it was the wrong person. Randy King's face was right there, recorded from just feet away, as he rummaged through someone else's vehicle. Second, there was ballistic evidence that would prove crucial at trial. The medical examiner didn't just identify the cause of death, they analyzed the gunshot wound in detail. During the investigation, they examined the shirt Harrison was wearing when he died. Around the bullet hole, there were specific gunpowder patterns called stippling. This forensic indicator meant one thing: the gun had been fired from just inches away. This wasn't a shot fired from across the parking lot. This wasn't someone shooting wildly in panic from a distance. Randy King had been close enough to Harrison to see his face when he pulled that trigger. Third, surveillance footage from the nightclub's perimeter and nearby businesses captured Randy fleeing toward a single vehicle immediately after the shooting. The getaway car was traced to Randy's girlfriend. And finally, there was the simple fact that Randy King was a probated felon who was prohibited from possessing any firearm. The moment he pulled that gun, he was committing multiple felonies before he ever pulled the trigger. The Atlanta Police Department, led by Detective Sergeant Al Hogan, built a case that would prove nearly impossible for the defense to overcome. Randy King was going to trial for murder. Nearly 2.5 years after Harrison's murder, Randy King's trial began on February 10th, 2026, at Fulton County Superior Court. Randy was now 24 years old. Harrison would have been 27 if Randy hadn't taken that from him. The Fulton County District Attorney's Office had a straightforward strategy: prove malice murder. In Georgia, malice murder requires showing either express or implied intent to kill. The evidence made that case almost effortlessly. On the first day of trial, prosecutors showed the jury body camera footage from the responding officers. The footage documented the life-saving efforts, the chaos of the scene, and the finality of Harrison's death. It connected Randy's actions, captured on the truck cam, to the physical consequences: a 25-year-old man dead in a parking lot. Then they showed the truck cam footage itself. The jury saw Randy's face clearly as he burglarized the vehicle. They watched him rifle through the interior. They saw the moment Harrison must have arrived, though Harrison himself wasn't visible on the internal camera. The medical examiner took the stand and displayed Harrison's shirt. They pointed to the gunpowder stippling around the bullet hole. They explained what every forensic expert knows: stippling only occurs when a gun is fired from just inches away. This wasn't a warning shot. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't someone firing in panic from a distance. Randy King had been close enough to see Harrison's eyes when he decided to kill him. Detective Sergeant Al Hogan testified that Randy acted alone in firing the fatal shot. The getaway vehicle, the timing of the flight, the absence of any second person on the truck cam, everything pointed to Randy as the sole shooter. Randy's defense attorney, Antone Rowe, adopted what he called a transparency approach. He acknowledged that Randy was present at the scene. He admitted Randy was committing auto burglary. Those facts were undeniable, but Rowe contested the murder charges. He pointed out that no gun was visible in the surveillance footage from inside the truck, and he emphasized Harrison's dying words, "two black dudes." The defense argued that while Randy was stealing from the truck, someone else, an unidentified third party, had pulled the trigger. Maybe Randy was there, maybe he was committing a crime, but he wasn't the killer. It was a creative strategy. If the jury believed there was reasonable doubt about who fired the gun, they might convict Randy of burglary, but acquit on murder. The prosecution dismantled this theory systematically. They pointed out that only one person was visible on the truck cam, the camera that had been recording the entire time. If a second person was close enough to fire a gun from inches away, where were they? Why didn't the camera capture them? They noted that surveillance from the nightclub perimeter showed Randy fleeing alone toward a single vehicle. No second person fled on foot or in another direction. And they invoked Georgia's party to a crime statute. Even if, and they stressed this was purely hypothetical since there was zero physical evidence of a second person, even if someone else had been present, Randy would still be legally responsible for any death that occurred during the commission of his felony. The jury heard closing arguments on Wednesday. They began deliberations. Thursday morning, February 12th, around 9:45 a.m. By noon, they had reached a verdict. Malice murder, 3 counts of felony murder, aggravated assault, entering an automobile, possession of a firearm by a probated felon. Randy King remained stone-faced as the foreperson read the verdict. He showed no emotion, no remorse, no acknowledgement of what he'd taken from Harrison's family, from Harrison's future, and that lack of remorse would matter very much at sentencing. The sentencing occurred the same day as the verdict. February 12th, 2026. Judge David Emerson had heard all the evidence. He'd watched Randy King sit through the trial, showing no emotion, no remorse, no humanity. But before the judge announced the sentence, Harrison's family finally got to speak. Harrison's mother, Autumn Ernst, stood before the court with a statement she'd been drafting for over a year. She told the judge how Harrison's death had shattered the lives of everyone who knew him. She described a young man who had worked his entire life for the opportunity that was stolen from him days before he could start. A son who made her laugh, a brother who lit up every room, a friend who was always the last to leave the dance floor because he loved life so much. Harrison's sister, Addison, spoke about the hole left in their family. The holidays without him, the milestones he'd never reach, the future that would never happen. Their words were powerful, heartbreaking, and absolutely necessary. Because Randy King had shown no remorse throughout the trial. He'd sat there stone-faced, as if Harrison's life and death meant nothing. One person's testimony stood out for its unusual nature. Dr. Julius Khaled identified himself as Randy King's mentor. He'd been part of Randy's life, trying to guide him, trying to help him stay on the right path. Dr. Khaled did something remarkable. He took accountability. He apologized to the Olvey family and to the court for the failure of his mentorship. He acknowledged that despite his efforts, Randy had chosen violence, that whatever intervention had been attempted, it hadn't been enough to prevent this tragedy. This testimony provided a rare glimpse into Randy's background, that people had tried to help him, that opportunities for rehabilitation had existed, and Randy had rejected all of it. Judge Emerson addressed the court. He noted Randy King's complete lack of remorse throughout the trial. He addressed the extreme proximity of the shot, fired from inches away, eliminating any claim of accident or panic. He noted that Randy had been on probation, prohibited from possessing a firearm when he chose to arm himself and commit crimes, that Randy had been given chances before and squandered them. The sentence, life without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 20 years. Let's break that down. Life without parole for Malice, murder 10 years. Consecutive for entering an automobile, 5 years consecutive for possession of a firearm during a felony, 5 years consecutive for possession of a firearm by a probated felon. Randy King will never leave prison. He will die behind bars. There is no parole hearing in his future, no second chance, no opportunity for redemption. Judge Emerson's message was clear. When you escalate a property crime to murder, when you shoot an innocent man in the chest from inches away, when you show no remorse for taking a life, the state of Georgia will remove you from society permanently. After the sentencing, Autumn Ernst told reporters that while nothing could bring Harrison back, The verdict and sentence allowed the family to close a chapter and be able to heal. It was justice, but it couldn't undo what Randy King had done on that September morning. Harrison Olvey's death didn't just end one life. It rippled through an entire community and sparked changes that will protect others for years to come. Harrison's fraternity brothers at Kennesaw State University refused to let his memory fade. They established the Harrison Olvey Memorial Scholarship, a permanent endowment to support students who, like Harrison, worked their way through college while maintaining high involvement in their community. Through events like Harrison Olvey Week, car washes, and Dunca Brother fundraisers, the fraternity raised nearly $70,000, far exceeding their initial goal of $25,000. The scholarship awards $1,000 annually to students who mirror Harrison's work ethic and character. It's a beautiful tribute. Every year, a student at Kennesaw State will benefit from financial support because Harrison's brothers refused to let his death be meaningless. Harrison's murder became a catalyst for actual policy change in Atlanta. In the year following his death, the Atlanta City Council approved legislation, Ordinance 23-01346, requiring service stations and certain commercial facilities to install high-quality video surveillance systems. The ordinance was specifically aimed at reducing car thefts and related violence, exactly the circumstances that led to Harrison's death. The city's 2025 to 2026 legislative priorities include continued focus on public safety and community violence reduction grants, funding for better lighting and security in transit hubs, and initiatives to address the root causes of slider crime. Perhaps most directly, Harrison's case sparked conversations about safety protocols for valet workers. Industry leaders and the City of Atlanta Office of Transportation discussed implementing mandatory safety training that emphasizes non-confrontation. The message, "No car is worth a human life." Valet workers should use remote surveillance and call police rather than physically intervening when they witness crimes. Harrison died running across a parking lot to protect a customer's truck. His death made it clear that property, no matter how valuable, isn't worth risking your life for. From a law enforcement perspective, this case demonstrated the power of internal vehicle surveillance. The truck cam provided evidence that external CCTV simply couldn't match. A clear, undeniable view of the perpetrator's face from just feet away. That technology secured Randy King's conviction. And it's likely to become more common as vehicle owners seek to protect their property and ensure that anyone who breaks in leaves behind irrefutable evidence. The Randy King trial proved that the anonymity of property crime is disappearing. In 2026, cameras are everywhere, and they're getting better every year. If you commit a crime, there's a very good chance you're being recorded. And that recording will send you to prison for life. If you've made it this far, thank you for learning about Harrison Olvey and the senseless murder that ended his life just as it was truly beginning. This case matters because it shows how quickly property crimes can turn deadly. Randy King wasn't planning to kill anyone when he started breaking into that truck. But when Harrison came running across that parking lot, Randy made a split-second decision to eliminate the witness rather than face the consequences of his actions. That decision cost Harrison everything: his future career, his family, his life. And it cost Randy his freedom forever. Harrison was 25 years old. He'd just graduated from college. He'd just accepted his dream job. He was days away from leaving the valet gig behind and starting the professional life he'd worked so hard to achieve. Remember Harrison's name? Remember that he died doing his job, running to protect a customer's property. Remember that behind every murder statistic is a real person with dreams, family, and a future that was stolen. Share this story. Support legislation that protects service workers. And remember that no property is worth a human life. Not for the workers trying to protect it, and certainly not for the criminals willing to kill to avoid getting caught.